Dragon Emperor Sun Chapter 421 to Chapter 430. The sun went down and it got dark. David got up and sorted his clothes, ready to go to the banquet. But Sonia was sleeping soundly at this time. David shouted twice. Sonia shook her head. Go on your own. I'm not going. I'm too sleepy. I want to sleep. David looked at Sonia, and finally turned and left. Sonia has a jade pendant to protect her body. If there is danger, David will know as soon as possible. Inside the Regal Hotel, almost all the people with heads and faces in Zhongcheng have arrived, but Ruben has risen to his status in Zhongcheng because of David. Now even Gu Wenchen and Ling Zhenchuan are all respectful to Ruben. People from other families are even more flattering to Ruben. All of them are full of envy in their eyes, envious that Ruben has a good daughter. Mr. Chen is here. Someone shouted and saw David push the door and walk in. Everyone got up and stood on both sides to greet David. David nodded slightly, greeting everyone, and then sat beside Ruben. Everyone else was also seated with excitement on their faces. To be able to sit and eat with David is something that many wealthy families are looking forward to. Mr. Chen, I heard from Pavilion Master Li that I wanted to invite you into the Dharma Protector Pavilion and gave you the position of Pavilion Master, but you refused. Gu Wenchen was the first to ask David. David smiled lightly. I have too many trivial matters to do. After everyone listened to it, they sighed for a while. The position of the Pavilion Master of the Provincial Capital's Law Enforcement Pavilion was rejected. This is too good. They really know how good David's strength is. You must know that this is the Pavilion Master of the Provincial Capital, bigger than the mayor of Ling Zhenchuan. This is a position that many people dream of. Let's have a good drink today, let's not talk about other things. Ruben knew that David disliked others to ask about him, so he raised a glass of wine and suggested. Yes, yes, only drinking, not talking about things. Gu Wenchen nodded again and again. Soon, the banquet started, everyone chatted lively, but David was faintly worried about Sonia. At this time, outside the Pinarist Villa area, two people wearing black robes and wrapping themselves tightly are walking towards the villa area. The two people just walked past the security guards at the door, and those security guards didn't seem to see it. You must know that such a high-end community will definitely not let strangers enter casually, not to mention wearing strange clothes. You are not a good person at first glance. But there was no security guard to stop these two people and let them walk in through the door. Do you think that something has gone in? Suddenly a security guard asked with a frown. What's there? We haven't seen it with so many eyes, so are you the only one who sees it? Someone refuted the security guard. I don't know, I always feel like someone has entered, and a gust of wind just made me shiver. The security guard looked puzzled. You kid can't see ghosts, right? Ha 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 ha. The other security guards started laughing. The security guard stopped talking, but took the baton in his hand, left the guard box at the gate, and patrolled the villa area. It can be seen that the security guard is doing his due diligence. But when the security guard was carrying a baton and just turned an intersection, he suddenly saw two black figures appear in front of him. Both of them were wrapped in black robes, only their eyes were exposed. Who are you? The security guard was startled and hurriedly asked with a baton. I saw one of the two shadows, and suddenly raised his hand. The security guard's body was sucked over instantly, his neck was directly stuck, and it became difficult to breathe. The security guard's eyes were wide open, his eyes were full of terror, he struggled desperately, but he couldn't break free at all. Which is David's villa? The black shadow asked with a hoarse voice. Chen, Mr. Chen is at the Hilltop Villa, he. Click. Before the security guard's words were finished, the security guard's neck was directly twisted and he was killed on the spot. Go. After the two shadows finished speaking, the shadows disappeared in an instant, and the next moment two shadows appeared more than 10 meters away. At this time, in the Hilltop Villa, Sonia had already woken up and was a little hungry. She was cooking in the kitchen. The two shadows quietly entered the villa, but Sonia didn't even know it. Sure enough, there is some ability. The entire Pinarest villa is still full of spiritual energy. One of them took a deep breath and said with a look of enjoyment. The two sat on the sofa unscrupulously. When Sonia prepared the meal and brought it out, she found that there were two more people on the sofa. She was shocked and the plate in her hand fell to the ground. Who are you? How did you get in? Sonia's face was pale, and she asked in horror. The two glanced at Sonia at the same time, with excitement in their eyes. I didn't expect David's little girl to be so handsome. This time our brothers are not in vain, such a handsome chick can't be hurt. No one paid any attention to Sonia. They had already regarded Sonia as their prey. Hearing the conversation between the two, Sonia's face became even more ugly. He knew that the two were here to trouble David. Who the H3LL are you? Don't you know it's illegal to break into a house without permission? Sonia tried her best to calm herself down and continued to ask. Breach of the law. Ha 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 ha, our brothers never knew what breaking the law was. It doesn't matter if I tell you, I am the left guardian of Swanya Valley, he is the right guardian, then David killed our people in Swanya Valley, we are here to seek revenge, where are the others? The left guard asked. He's not at home. Sonia shook her head, glanced at the bedroom secretly with her eyes, and found that the bedroom door was open, so she was about to run into the bedroom to close the door, and then call David. You don't have to think about escaping, in front of us, no one can escape. The right protector looked at Sonia squintingly and said. Sonia doesn't care about that, as soon as she gritted her teeth, she suddenly ran towards the bedroom. Humph, the little girl is disobedient, she said that you can't escape. The right guardian snorted coldly, his body instantly reached behind Sonia, and grabbed it towards Sonia. But just when Sonia was about to be caught, the jade pendant that Sonia was wearing suddenly flashed a red light, and the body of the right protector was instantly knocked out. Sonia also ran into the bedroom, locked the door tightly, leaned against the door, and dressed in rough clothes. Spirit protection weapon. The right protector looked at his slightly trembling palm, and his eyes were full of surprise. At the same time, David, who was drinking at the Regal Hotel, suddenly shook his body, and the wine glass in his hand fell to the ground, instantly shattering. Mr. Chen, what's the matter? David, what's going on? Everyone's eyes fell on David, but David didn't have time to explain. The whole body disappeared in place in an instant, then appeared in the window, and jumped down. Everyone was stunned, and hurried over to check it out. It was a dozen floors, and they jumped down when they said they jumped. When everyone looked down through the window, they found that David was no longer there. Immortal, Mr. Chen is really an immortal. Gu Wenchen exclaimed with a shocked expression. In the Pinarest villa, Sonia shook her hands and took out her mobile phone to call David, but before the call was dialed, David's call came in. David, he is from Swanya Valley. There are 2 people in total. They seem to be very powerful. They are in the living room now. I fled into the bedroom and closed the door. Sonia said anxiously to David. After hearing this, David raised his heart to his throat. For the Swanyuegu group, how could a bedroom door stop them? You stay in the bedroom, I'll be there soon. After David finished speaking, he increased the speed to the extreme, and the wind whistled in his ears. In the living room, Swanyuegu's left and right guardians did not intend to break the door, but sat on the sofa and talked. This David really has something, and he can actually refine a protective spiritual weapon. If such a person can be used by my Swanyuegu, he will definitely become a great weapon. The right protector said with a bit of admiration in his eyes. This son must be arrogant and arrogant, how can he join our Swanya Valley, so don't waste your efforts. The left guard shook his head. Humph, can someone who is arrogant still escape my spirit devouring technique? He will do what I tell him to do then. The right guardian raised his mouth and stretched out his right hand, only to see that the right hand was wrapped in a cloud of black mist. At this moment, David's figure rushed into the villa in an instant. Seeing these two guys sitting in the living room and not rushing into the bedroom, David's hanging heart finally let go. Seeing David's appearance, Swaniuagu's left and right guardians stood up, looking at David with a bit of surprise in his eyes. "Are you David?" Right Protector asked. They didn't expect David to be so young, and to have such achievements at such an age. If he really joined Swanya Valley, he would definitely become an archmage. "You are from Swanya Valley?" David frowned. "That's right, we are the right and left guardians of Swanya Valley. If you kill our people in Swanya Valley, we will definitely not give up, but seeing that you are young and promising, it is not easy to cultivate. If you are willing to join our Swanya Valley, I can let go of your life." The right guardian nodded and said. "Humph." David snorted coldly, "I don't want to be with you guys like you Swaniuagu thieves. If you scared my wife today, then leave your life behind." "What am I talking about? This guy must be arrogant, how could he join our Swanya Valley? Stop talking nonsense, just slap him to death." Zohufa said impatiently. "Don't worry, leave it to me." The right guardian smiled coldly, and saw that the black mist on his right hand suddenly became thicker and thicker, and then with a flick of his finger, a black mist shot directly towards David. Seeing this situation, David was overjoyed, pretending that he couldn't dodge in time, and directly let the black mist enter his body. When the black mist entered David's body, it was instantly swallowed up by David's Danshan, and then the concentration technique started to refine the black mist. "Ha ha ha, boy, you're so arrogant about this skill. You've been hit by my spirit devourer, so you still don't listen to me." Seeing that David did not dodge away, the right protector burst into laughter. And the guardian Zo was stunned for a moment. "With this little ability, how did you kill the old guy Bohu and the patrol officer Zo? Could it be that these two guys were assassinated?" "Definitely, Bohuo is lustful, as long as he is poisoned by a woman, he doesn't care about anything. Didn't you see how beautiful this David's wife is? Maybe Bohuo that old guy was caught in a trap." The right protector said with disdain on his face. That black fog, in David's Danshan, was quickly refined, and then David pretended to be surprised to look at the right guardian. "What did you just do? It's gone in a flash." Right protector was stunned for a moment, and looked at David in surprise. "Boy, do you still have thoughts now?" "Why not?" David asked. "Damn, what's going on? You won't lose your spirit devourer, will you?" The left guardian cursed one sentence. "Impossible, it must be that my skill is too small." After the right guardian finished speaking, he suddenly waved his palm, and this time a large cloud of black mist directly wrapped David. Soon, the black mist entered David's body, and David's eyes lost their luster, and the whole person became dull. "Ha ha ha, see no, this time I succeeded. This kid has good strength and has aura to protect his mind, so he didn't succeed just now." Seeing David like that, the right protector burst out laughing. At this time, in David's body, the black fog desperately wanted to rush into David's head, but unfortunately it was tightly wrapped by David's Danshan, and the concentrate heart technique was running fast. "Does it work? Try it." Left protector said. "Boy, come and give me a shoulder." The right protector waved his hand towards David. David's eyes were blank, he walked slowly towards the right guardian, then stood behind the sofa and pressed his shoulder for the right guardian. "See if you can, my spirit devouring technique is not good enough." Right protector said with a proud face. "Press me for a while." Zohufa also sat down and leaned his head gently on the sofa. David put his hands on the shoulders of the right guardian, and the condensed heart technique was running. David's hands were like a huge vortex, and began to absorb the spiritual power of the right guardian. The right guardian was lying on the sofa and enjoying, but soon he felt that something was wrong. The spiritual power in his body seemed to be rushing outwards uncontrollably. In the galloping river and sea, the spiritual power began to drain rapidly. The right guardian felt bad. He wanted to get up, but his body couldn't move at all. When he looked up, he found that David was looking at him with a playful expression. His eyes were clear. How could he look like he was being controlled? The right guardian opened his mouth and wanted to shout, but he couldn't make a sound at all, while the left guardian slightly closed his eyes and was ready to enjoy being massaged. Soon, the spiritual power on the right guardian was completely sucked by David, and the whole person turned into a mummified corpse. When he died, his eyes were wide open, and his eyes were full of incredible. Looking at the side with slightly closed eyes, and also thinking about the left guardian who was well massaged, David raised the corner of his mouth, and put a hand directly on the left of the guardian's shoulder. The guardian left's body shook slightly, and his eyes suddenly opened, because he didn't hear the instructions of the guardian right. Why did David come to massage himself? When Hufazo opened his eyes, he saw the mummified corpse next to him. He jumped up from the sofa at once, and his head was about to explode. In the blink of an eye, his partner turned into a mummified corpse, and he didn't even make a cry for help. Hufazo's scalp was numb, his eyes were full of horror, and he looked at David, then turned around and ran out. David's figure flickered, directly blocking Hufa's path. Since you are here, then don't leave. I just use your resources tonight to cultivate well. Protector Zo frowned. The black robe on his body suddenly waved. The black robe actually blocked the light, and the figure of Protector Zo disappeared instantly in the darkness. Will you Swaniuega use these illusions to deceive people? With a look of disdain, David grabbed into the darkness. After a scream, the guardian Zo appeared, and the black robe immediately shattered. Protector Zo was horrified, his mouth was wide open, he wanted to speak, but he couldn't say a word. The spiritual power in the body was rapidly lost, directly entering David's body, and then being refined by the heart concentration art for his own use. After draining the spiritual energy on the left guardian, David disposed of the body and threw it all into the mountain stream. After tidying up the room, looking at the closed bedroom door, David pushed it forward and found that the door was still locked. Sonia, it's me, it's all right. David knocked on the door and said. Sonia opened the door with panic on her face. After seeing David, she threw herself into David's arms. David patted Sonia's back lightly and comforted her softly. At this time, the jade pendant on Sonia's body has been eclipsed and lost its efficacy. David frowned slightly. He had to find a way to refine a more powerful body protection weapon, otherwise Sonia's safety would not be guaranteed. Now David's weakness is Sonia, and he has been worried about Sonia's safety. At the same time, in the Swanya Valley Hall, the valley owner Qianfeng was playing chess with an old man. Suddenly there was a sound in the black pottery pot beside him. Qianfeng opened the pottery pot to check and found that 2 more goo insects were dead. It has been eaten by other goo worms. Looking at me, I really underestimated this guy. Qianfeng frowned. What? The left and right guardians also died, the old man asked. Qianfeng nodded, his face was ugly, and he didn't speak. It seems that some of our old people should go and have a look. After the old man finished speaking, he suddenly waved his sleeves, and the chess pieces in front of him disappeared instantly. The old man turned and left, while Qianfeng's eyes flashed with cold light. In the Pinarist villa at this time, Sonia had already fallen asleep, holding David's clothes tightly with one hand. She could see that she was very scared, afraid that David would leave. Seeing Sonia like that, David sighed softly, his eyes full of pity. If it wasn't for him, Sonia would not have been so frightened. Closing his eyes slightly, David began to refine and absorb the spiritual power of Swaniuegu's left and right guardians. On top of David's head, the faint white mists turned into vortexes, moving towards David's body. It's pouring in quickly. The next morning, Chifeng sent a message saying that the money had been transferred to the Yaoangfu, and now it was waiting for the Yaoangfu to deliver it. David didn't reply either. He planned to use these few days to accompany Sonia well and let her slowly come out of her fear. At the same time, after receiving the money from Chifeng, the housekeeper Lao Chu immediately found the mansion owner Sun Simiao. "Palace Master, the money has already been sent, can we still deliver it?" Lao Chu asked. "Of course, it must be distributed, and not a single herb can be distributed less," Sun Simiao said. "Palace Master, why? Then Zhang Zhengzhong is already dead. All this money was traded with us by Chifeng under the guise of the Zhang family. Why do we have to ship them to them? Then Chifeng has no backer in Kyoto." Lao Chu said with a puzzled look. Although Chifeng has no backers in the capital, there is still a capable man standing behind him. He was just in his early 20s, and he could kill Zhang Zhengzhong, and even the old dude in Swanya Valley. Isn't it a genius? The corner of Sun Simiao's mouth slightly raised. "Palace Master is talking about the one named David? I heard that the reason why he was able to kill Zhang Zhengzhong was entirely because Zhang Zhengzhong was exhausted after fighting Sun Yaobang and Chifeng, and David took advantage of it." Lao Chu said with some disdain. He was just in his early 20s, even if he cultivated from his mother's womb, he would not be able to reach the level of an internal force master. What about Swanyuegu's doubt? And not long ago, a left patrol sent by Swanyuegu was also killed by this David. Remember, the enemy of the enemy is a friend. We will follow Swanyuegu sooner or later. Jean, now that David has formed a deadly feud with Swanyuegu, then we will draw him over. This is a rare genius. Sun Simiao became more and more excited as he spoke, his eyes flashing with light. Why is this kid so powerful? Lao Chu looked a little surprised. "Palace Master intends to pull this David into our Medicine King's mansion." "That's right, our Yaoang mansion needs such talents." Sun Simiao nodded. "But David killed Zhang Zhengzhong. Didn't you say that the Zhang family has a backer in Kyoto? If the backer of the Zhang family finds trouble with David, what should we do?" Lao Chu was very puzzled. It was an eventful time. Why did Sun Simiao still want to win over him? "Haha, old Chu, then there is Zhangzheng in the Zhang family's capital, and don't you know that our Yaoang's mansion is the backer of the capital? Do you think I will be afraid?" Sun Simiao laughed out loud. Old Chu nodded again and again. "That's right, which family in Kyoto can compete with the Bai family? Go ahead, the martial arts gathering is about to start, and this year, we need to increase the rewards, and the trade street will be renovated as soon as possible. Only when our reputation here becomes more and more popular, there will be more and more precious medicinal materials. Hebao is going here." Sun Simiao waved his hand and said. "Got it." Lao Chu withdrew. Just after Lao Chu left, a 27 or 8-year-old young man walked out from the back of the hall. The young man was well dressed and looked extraordinary at first glance. "Second young master." Sun Simiao hurriedly stood up and bowed slightly towards the young man. The person who can make the palace master of Yaoang Mansion so respectful is definitely not an ordinary person. This person is Bai Zhantang, the second young master of the Bai family in Kyoto. Although this Bai Zhantang is only 27 or 88, his strength has already reached the master of Nei Jin, and now he is the 6th grade master is stronger than that Zhang Zhengzhong. The reason why Bai Zhantang was able to have this strength at such a young age was inseparable from the Medicine King's mansion. Every year, the Medicine King's mansion would pay tribute to the Bai family with a large amount of medicinal pills to assist the children of the Bai family in their practice. "Palace Master's son, don't be so polite, sit down." Although Bai Zhantang is the second young master of the Bai family in Kyoto, and his strength is so strong, he is introverted. "Second young master, this year's martial arts gathering, you came in person, is there something wrong?" After Sun Simiao sat down, he asked Bai Zhantang carefully. yet. Bai Zhantang nodded, my Bai family has lost a spiritual tool. This spiritual tool can nourish the body and turn bad luck into good luck, so I came here to see if this spiritual tool will be available this time. Appeared at a martial arts party. After Sun Simiao heard this, he was surprised. Second young master, is there anyone in this world who can steal from the Bai family? Bai Zhantang smiled awkwardly, don't ask any more questions, a few servants of my Bai family will come later, you just need to receive them well. Besides, the news of my coming here must not be revealed. Second young master, don't worry, I will never reveal it. Sun Simiao nodded. As the martial arts gathering approached, people began to arrive in Tianfeng town ahead of schedule. A small town with only 10,000 people began to become lively at this time. David and Sonia accompanied Reuben in Horindal for a few days, and then returned to the provincial capital. At first, David wanted Sonia to stay in Horindal, but when Swanuego left and right to protect the law, David did not dare to let Sonia leave her side for half a step. In the afternoon, Lin Tianhe drove David and Sonia to the provincial capital. You two are finally back, I've been waiting here for days. Seeing David and Sonia come back, Gu Linger hurriedly said. Linger, what are you waiting for? Why didn't you go to work? Seeing Gu Linger waiting for them, Sonia asked strangely. David was also puzzled, what happened? I quit my job and don't go to work. Gu Linger said. Resign. David and Sonia all looked at Gu Linger in surprise. They all know that Gu Linger's ideal is to be a detective, and then eliminate violence in Liang. How do you say you quit your job? Why did you resign? Sonia asked in surprise. I want to become stronger. Only when I am strong can I punish the strong and help the weak, so I want to worship David as my teacher. Gu Linger looked at David firmly and said. During this period of time, Gu Linger was deeply affected. In the face of her absolute strength, even if she was a member of the Dharma Protector Pavilion, she was not intimidated at all. This prompted Gu Linger to resign and make herself stronger. Gu Linger's words almost prevented David from falling. Sonia covered her mouth and smiled, Linger, why are you crazy? If you take David as your teacher, what will you call me? Do you want to call me my wife? Go, go, who called your wife? The two of you are not married yet, so you are not ashamed to say that. Gu Linger rolled her eyes at Sonia, then looked at David and said, David, I want to worship you as my teacher, you teach me Kung Fu. I don't accept apprentices. David shook his head. If you don't accept it, I will follow you. I will go wherever you go. Gu Linger grabbed David's arm, and it seemed that he was going to rely on David. David looked at Gu Linger like that, and looked at Sonia helplessly, he wanted Sonia to help him persuade him. Sonia smiled, I can't help you, if you can't, just compromise. David sighed, I can teach you, but I can't be your master, I can give you some pointers occasionally. David reluctantly made a compromise. Okay, you just need to teach me. Gu Linger smiled, then dragged Sonia and ran away, saying as she ran, Sonia, I'll take you to see my new foundation, it's amazing. Looking at the backs of the two, David smiled slightly. Mr. Chen, Chifeng has brought all the medicinal materials here. Lin Tianhe came over and said to David. David nodded and followed Lin Tianhe into the room. This is a separate room that David specially sent to clean up, ready for alchemy. Seeing David coming, Chifeng immediately stepped forward and said, Mr. Chen, I have all the medicinal materials from the Yaoangfu, and the Yaoangfu has given some more. It seems that they don't know that Zhang Zhengzhong is dead. David glanced at the medicinal herbs on the ground, all of them were top-quality medicinal herbs with more than 100 years of age, rich and pure spiritual energy. No, they must have known it already. David looked at the herbs and smiled lightly. If it was said that when Zhang Zhengzhong was killed at the beginning, the Yaoangfu did not get the news so quickly, but now more than 10 days have passed, it is impossible for the Yaoangfu to not know. If such a big thing happened, the Yaoangfu would not know. Then they can't do it on this scale. Then why did the Yaoang mansion know about it and still trade with us? I always sent someone to pretend to be someone from the Zhang family to talk about it. Qi Feng said with a puzzled face. I don't know about this, maybe they have other plans. David also couldn't figure out what medicine was sold in the gourd of the medicine palace, and then David continued, since the medicinal materials have been delivered, we will accept them. I just made some medicinal pills for you too, so that your strength can be improved. Thank you, Mr. Chen. Qi Feng and Lin Tianhu all said excitedly. Especially Lin Tianhu, coming to the provincial capital has touched him a lot, and he always wants to improve his strength. If he can reach the realm of the Master of Inner Strength one day, then his life will not be in vain. David asked Lin Tianhu and Qi Feng to guard outside, while he sat cross-legged and refined more than a dozen medicinal herbs from the billions of medicinal materials in front of him. David did not stay by himself, but gave it all to Qi Feng and Lin Tianhu. Lin Tianhu gave more. After all, Lin Tianhu's strength was too low. The two of them looked at the pills in their hands with excitement and gratitude in their eyes. They knew the value of these pills. They were made from billions of medicinal materials, and David gave them all. Lin Tianhu, you take the Xiaohuan Dan prescription to buy some medicinal materials, I'm going to practice some Xiaohuan Dan. David ordered to Lin Tianhu. Okay. Lin Tianhu nodded and followed Qi Feng away. David intends to practice some small repayment pills, and wait for the martial arts gathering to prepare for emergencies. He has no money on him now. If he sees something he likes at the martial arts gathering, he can exchange it with small repaying pills. In the evening, Gulinger called David and Sonia and planned to invite them out to dinner. After all, David promised to teach her Kung Fu, and Gulinger should also express it. Tell me, what do you want to eat? Don't save me money. Gulinger asked David and Sonia. What kind of food is there in the provincial capital? You know best, how do we know? Sonia said. That's good, I'll take you to eat teppanyaki, I know there is a good one. Gulinger said and opened the door. But just when Gulinger was about to get into the car, the phone suddenly rang. It was from the family who called Gulinger, saying that there was something to do, and she wanted Gulinger to go home for dinner. Gulinger suddenly looked embarrassed, while Sonia smiled slightly. It's okay, you can go home and eat, we too can find a place to eat. Why don't you guys come home to eat with me? It just so happens that my parents want to see David too. Gulinger said. Your parents want to see David? Sonia was taken aback. Gulinger suddenly felt that he had said something wrong, and immediately blushed and explained, it's all that ancient style, talking about how powerful David is at home all day long, so my parents are very curious. This is not good. David was a little embarrassed. What's wrong with this? Get in the car. Gulinger pushed Sonia and David into the car and drove straight to her home. Gulinger's parents are also important officials in the provincial capital, but they live in a very ordinary community. The house with 3 bedrooms and 2 halls is quite spacious. At this time, downstairs, a Rolls-Royce Phantom was parked in the community, which seemed out of tune with the community. Whose luxury car is this parked here? It's still the license plate of Kyoto. Gulinger muttered. David and Sonia followed behind Gulinger with gifts in their hands. After all, the first time I went to Gulinger's house, I couldn't go empty-handed. When Gulinger opened the door, she found that there were 2 more people in the house, and the atmosphere in the house was a little depressing. David and Sonia followed, and immediately felt that the atmosphere was wrong. David looked at a young man sitting on the sofa. The energy fluctuations in the young man's body had reached the strength of the master of internal energy, and even surpassed that Zhang Zhengzhong. And behind the young man, there was a tall middle-aged man with a majestic face. The aura of the middle-aged man was even stronger, even surpassing that of the young man. These 2 people were placed in the provincial capital, and they are both first-class masters. Now David finally understands why Wu Liuyi sent his son out. It seems that this martial arts world is really heaven. The young man also seemed to sense the breath of David, raised his eyes to look at David, but quickly withdrew his gaze. Dad, Mom, what is he doing here? Gu Ling'er looked at the young man sitting on the sofa and asked her parents angrily. Ling'er, of course I'm here to see you. Although the two of us have broken off our marriage, we can still be together now that you are not married and I am not married. The young man got up, looked at Gu Ling'er with a smile and said. Qin Feng, you're dead. Even if I live forever, I won't marry you. Wasn't the me that you humiliated enough? Why didn't you go to your Miss Bai, did you get dumped? Gu Ling'er looked at Qin Feng with disdain. Qin Feng was not angry either, and smiled lightly. Ling'er, in fact, I still like you. I dumped Bai Manli a long time ago. This time I made a special trip to find you. As Qin Feng said, he actually grabbed Gu Ling'er on his body. Gu Ling'er wanted to dodge, but found that Qin Feng was so fast that Gu Ling'er couldn't dodge at all. Gu Ling'er's hand was grabbed by Qin Feng, her whole face became extremely ugly, and she struggled desperately. Qin Feng, you ba5tard, let go of your hand. Seeing this, Gu Ling'er's parents were about to speak, but the middle-aged man behind Qin Feng glanced at them. This glance was filled with endless coercion, which directly made Gu Ling'er's parents take a few steps back, and their expressions changed. Very ugly. Who are you? Let go of Ling'er, aren't you a hooligan? Seeing this, Sonia yelled at Qin Feng angrily. Seeing this, the middle-aged man suddenly burst out with energy, and a terrifying aura pressed towards Sonia. Humph! David snorted coldly and pulled Sonia directly behind him. His body's spiritual power exploded in an instant, directly meeting the energy of the middle-aged man. An overwhelming force was oppressed, causing the middle-aged man to take a few steps back, and only then did he stabilize his figure. Then David stepped forward, directly clasping Qin Feng's wrist, and abruptly broke Qin Feng's hand. For girls, it's better to show some respect. David's voice was extremely cold, and his eyes were fixed on Qin Feng. When the middle-aged man saw this, his eyes burst out with killing intent. Jiangbei provincial capital still has such young talents, it's really insightful. Saying that, the middle-aged man clenched his fists with both hands and was about to smash David with a punch. Ada, stop! Qin Feng said. The middle-aged man could only close his fists. Qin Feng, on the other hand, looked at David with hostility in his eyes and said, Who are you, Gu Ling'er? Friend. David let go of Qin Feng and said lightly. Qin Feng glanced at David, put away his hostility and said, I'm here to do business, not to fight. I'll have a good fight with you if I have a chance. After Qin Feng finished speaking, he turned to look at Gu Ling'er's father and said, Uncle, what I told you just now, I hope you will consider it carefully. As long as you help me find someone, I promise to use all the connections of the Qin family to bring you down. Transfer to Kyoto to work. I will consider it, said Gu Ling'er's father. Qin Feng nodded with satisfaction and left with the middle-aged man. Dad, who did Qin Feng ask you to find? Isn't it enough for our family to be humiliated? Are you still helping him? Qin Feng walked back, and Gu Ling'er asked her father loudly. Gu Ling'er's father took out a photo of the girl. He asked me to find this girl, saying that she might have come to the provincial capital, and wanted me to initiate the relationship of the provincial capital to find it, and it was no big deal. You should reject him on the spot. What else are you thinking about? I think you just want to go to Kyoto to become an official. Gu Ling'er roared angrily, then turned around and ran out of the house. David and Sonia looked embarrassed, they could only put things down and hurriedly chased out. In the car, Gu Ling'er was in tears with a look of grievance. Sonia comforted softly, Ling'er, who is that man? Why did you break off the marriage with you? Gu Ling'er wiped away her tears, and then slowly began to speak. It turned out that when Gu Wenchen was still a high-ranking official in the provincial capital, he had a good relationship with the Qin family in Kyoto. At that time, the Qin family was still a small family. Later, under the network of Gu Wenchen, the Qin family grew little by little. After Gu Linger graduated from university, with the help of Gu Wenchen, he got engaged with Qin Feng of the Qin family. At that time, Gu Linger saw that Qin Feng was handsome and powerful, so he liked it very much. However, the good times did not last long. After Gu Wenchen retired, Qin Feng broke off the marriage with Gu Linger, and proposed marriage to Bai Manli of the Bai family in Kyoto in public. Great, since then the relationship between the two families has been broken. This Qin Feng is simply inferior to a beast. Sonia gnashed her teeth angrily after hearing this. David was driving the car in front, and he could only sigh slightly. As the saying goes, people take tea to cool off. In this Qin family, it can be said that the performance is incisively and vividly, but in today's society, such people are not rare. After finding a place to eat, David went back. Sonia and Gu Linger slept together to comfort her, and David used the night time to refine some small return pills. Early the next morning, Wu Xi of the Wu family came to the door. "Mr. Chen, if we are attending the martial arts gathering, we will be leaving today. I'm afraid we'll be late, and we won't even have a place to stay." Wu Xi respectfully followed David and said, "Okay, wait a moment, I'll explain it." David nodded, explained that Lin Tianhu and Chi Feng were optimistic about Sonia, and then rushed to Tianfeng town with Wu Xi. Tianfeng town used to be a barren town, but because of the construction of Yaoang Mansion and the annual martial arts gathering, Tianfeng town became prosperous. The medical halls, hotels, and traffic that can be seen everywhere are very lively, much more prosperous than some third and fourth tier small cities. "Mr. Chen, I have already booked the hotel in advance, but the scale of the hotel here is incomparable with the provincial capital. Mr. Chen, please feel wronged." Wu Xi took David to a small hotel and stopped. It doesn't matter. David didn't have any requirements for where he lived. David entered the hotel with Wu Xi, and glanced at it casually, and found that there were quite a few masters of internal energy in the hotel lobby, including some masters of internal energy. When Wuxi passed the hall, many people greeted him, which shows that there are many acquaintances in Wuxi. On the third floor, Wu Xi took David to the room closest to the corridor and said, "Mr. Chen, this is the best room in the hotel, so you can feel wronged." David walked into the room. The whole room is not big, only a dozen square meters, a bed and a bathroom. Although the area is not large and a bit crude, but the sanitation is very clean and the environment is not bad. You can see it when you open the window to the only street in Tianfeng town. "Junior brother Wuxi, is the room ready?" At this moment, several people walked towards David and Wu Xi. The first was an old man who looked in his 70s or 80s. His whole body was thin and blue veins appeared on his body, like a mummified corpse. Behind the old man followed two young men. One of them was tall and full of masculinity, while the other was much thinner, but his eyes were captivating, and his aura was always permeating his body. Like a rooster that is ready to fight at any time, full of arrogance. It was the tall young man who followed Wu Xi, who was looking at Wu Xi with a smile.